Can a 2022 Scream movie really live up to the high standards set by the original, especially when it's released in January? Here's what works and what doesn't. Massive spoilers ahead. Most people don't come to horror movies to see awkward romantic scenes, especially between characters the audience has barely met. Before Sam returns to Woodsboro, she has a pretty uncomfortable I love you moment with her boyfriend Richie. The love confession is the first interaction the audience has with these characters, and it just feels off. Given that Richie ends up being Amber's secret serial killer boyfriend, the ickiness makes sense, but it's a little early to be that obvious. It would make much more sense to have this kind of scene take place after Sam gets attacked in the hospital, and we've gotten to know both characters a bit better. But as it stands, it only serves two purposes: making fans feel awkward and showing Richie's killer cards a bit too early. Let us get invested in a couple before getting sappy in a horror film, please. Ever since killing off Randy in Scream 2, and with it any possibility of a Sidney-Randy relationship, Gale and Dewey have become Scream fans' favorite couple. They're a bit of an odd pairing. Dewey is a Woodsboro lifer, while Gale seeks a journalistic reach that extends far beyond Woodsboro's haunting hills. Realistically, their relationship is doomed from the start, and although it seems like an inevitability, breaking up Gale and Dewey off-screen is a disservice to Wes Craven. He's not here to weigh in on that decision, and the way it plays out feels cheap and uncharacteristic on Dewey's part. Their reunion confrontation scene is gripping and emotional, but it's a lame thing to do to Dewey's character right before his death. It's no secret that horror has more than a few toxic, damaging cliches that still exist within the genre. Scream 2 even addresses this head-on.
Brothers don't last long in situations like this.
Sure, cameraman Joel manages to escape death by getting the hell out of town, but despite acknowledging this trope, Scream 2 begins by immediately killing off two black characters. Not a good look, Ghostface. However, unlike its predecessors, 2022's Scream manages to be self-aware of the worst stereotypes the genre has to offer and actually fixes them. The film adequately handles mental health topics and even boasts a stellar female-led cast with women who don't immediately become damsels. Featuring a diverse gaggle of teens, the movie manages to subvert the worst horror tropes, all while avoiding being preachy or taking people out of the film. But even better, Chad and Mindy both survive Ghostface's onslaught to live another day, and in the horror world, that's certainly something to celebrate. In fact, almost all of the diverse characters from the film survive. There's no denying that Dewey goes out with a bang, but his death is no less frustrating. The film already takes his status as a sheriff away, forcing him into retirement, which is the reason he goes hardcore vigilante in the first place. After coming to save Tara like a badass, Dewey kicks the living daylights out of Ghostface, even getting a few rounds into the killer. Yet he makes two vital mistakes that he should have known better than to do. He doesn't take off Ghosty's mask or go in for a headshot when he has the chance. Instead, he gets stabbed as blood pools out of his mouth and he's spread out on the hospital floor like a fallen angel with teddy bears strewn around him. The kicker? Gale calls while he's bleeding out, and her reaction to his death is heart-wrenching. The one redeeming moment after this bummer of a sequence comes at the end when Gale refuses to write about the fame-seeking Ghostface killers. Instead, she wants to write a story about a good man who used to be the sheriff of Woodsboro. However, David Arquette told Looper in an exclusive interview that Dewey was never originally supposed to survive the first film, so the audience can take solace in the extra 4 films we got with him. It's hard to not get a little misty-eyed at the sight of the Randy Meeks Memorial Home Theater in the Meeks household. Following the theme of giving the new Scream characters a connection to the OGs, the 2022 film's Wonder Twins, Chad and Mindy, are the niece and nephew of our first horror expert, Randy. Of course, out of all of the franchise's characters, Randy took center stage during the series' most meta moments, at least until his untimely death. Now, in the 2022 film, his niece Mindy is here to follow in his footsteps. When it comes to iconic film moments, few can top Randy Meeks screaming at a hapless Laurie Strode to look behind her when he's watching Halloween. Meanwhile, fans and Sidney yell the same thing to Randy as Ghostface stalks him. Keen on keeping up the family tradition, in the 2022 Scream, Mindy watches the fictionalized stab version of the very same scene, repeating his oblivious performance as she yells at Randy to turn around while Ghostface lurks in the room. She's now reached a 3rd level of meta, but given her uncle's fate, she should really know better. The movies just aren't the same without Randy, and the homage is a welcome touch. Ah yes, the killer reveal everyone has been waiting for since Tara's landline first rang. Scream gets even more meta than usual when Richie and Amber out themselves as Woodsboro's latest dastardly duo. So what's the deal with Richie and Amber's unlikely homicidal pairing? Oh, they just hate the in-universe stab sequels adapted from Gale's original books. Yep, that's it. They met on a stab message board of all places before Richie stalked and seduced Sam. Of course, he takes a minute out of his very busy stabbing schedule to slut-shame Sam, the woman he actively manipulates. Like most of the Ghostface killers, they're whiny about their origin story, complaining that no one takes a true fan seriously. Essentially, their murder spree is a twisted director's cut they concoct to make a better movie that honors the original. Just go to film school, you creeps. The reveal is a mixture of an epic yet fairly predictable plot twist, topped off with lackluster motives. Dewey even calls the plot twist right at the very beginning. It's always the love interest. As far as horror villains go, Ghostface is a simple killer. He torments some hapless teenagers on the phone in a discount costume from the corner store, then gets stabby when people don't want to play his deadly game. As far as bells and whistles go, his kills don't have a whole lot of thrills. That's what makes the Scream franchise good. It knows exactly what it is and doesn't need to prove anything with an onslaught of CGI and special effects. Occasionally, however, the series does seem to feel the need to add some extra oomph to the kills. Gale and Sidney's partnership comes into play when the duo takes on one half of Ghostface, Amber. Amber seems to bite the dust after a fiery collision with a gas stove. Later on, in arguably the most badass scene of the series, Sidney hands the gun to Tara, who takes the kill shot when a flaming Amber barrels into the room. The first Scream film reached iconic status because of a cast that largely perished in that very same movie, and due to the ever-revolving slate of villains in the franchise, the sequels have never quite lived up. However, series fans are met with an epic surprise when Skeet Ulrich crashes the Woodsboro party, returning as Billy Loomis. No, he doesn't get a resurrection in physical form, but viewers discover that Billy didn't only leave dead bodies behind in Scream. As it turns out, he's the biological father of the new final girl, Sam. We can chalk her conception up to bad high school decisions. Throughout the film, we watch Sam grappling with this revelation years after the reveal, and her trauma manifests itself as a hallucination of dear old dead dad. However, the stakes are raised when Richie tries to kill her, and she sees a vision of Billy showing her where a knife is on the ground. Up until this point, Billy is a hostile representation of her own self-hatred regarding her mental health and genes, but she accepts herself in this moment. In addition to the fun cameo from Ulrich, it's a nice redemption moment for Sam in that your genealogy or mental health doesn't define who you are. Horror typically demonizes mental illness, but this moment is a nice change of pace. The 2022 Scream is a compelling mashup between the legacy and new cast. The new film offers perfect closure for the franchise, and it would be the perfect ending if they stopped here. The beauty of Scream and its sequels hinges on the fact that the writers never rebooted the movie franchise with a new final girl. The 2022 Scream is a phenomenal homage, but most fans don't want Woodsboro without Sidney Prescott. Given how many characters survived this movie, the film sets up the franchise for an overhaul that could continue for another 25 years with a new cast, but that will only add Scream to the list of franchises watered down by too many sequels. The movie offers closure for the legacy characters and teases the future of Ghostface, but nobody needs to see that play out on screen. The 2015 Scream TV series was a great way to keep the franchise alive without overshadowing the films, but Scream movies that don't focus on Sidney just feel wrong. Wes Craven, director of the original Scream film, is nothing short of a horror legend. His films are so ingrained in pop culture that even horror's biggest haters can name characters like Freddy Krueger and Ghostface. Craven reinvented the horror genre and was an invaluable element of some of the best satirical and deconstructed horror the genre has ever seen. While many horror franchises lose their director after the first or second films, Craven stood by Scream up until his death in 2015. Craven loved this franchise just as much as its dedicated fans, and despite his passing, you can feel his presence throughout the 2022 film. Neve Campbell said during an exclusive interview with Looper discussing doing the fifth film without Craven, "He was talked about every day, and we were always discussing, would Wes do it this way? Would he do it that way?" The directors wanted that input because they're uber fans of his. They became directors because of Wes. She praised the final product, adding, quote, "I really think they've done him right. I think Wes would be proud." Just as the movie honors its fallen characters, 2022's Scream dedicates itself to Craven with 2 words: for Wes. Dylan Minnette even plays a character named Wes, another nod to the late great filmmaker. All in all, no fan watching the movie can deny that Wes Craven's legacy and energy lives on in the movie, and that's all fans could hope for. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite horror franchises are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.